Yeah, so the acquisition of spiritual power. The world is filled with men and women seeking pleasure, excitement, novelty, seeking ever to be moved to laughter or tears, not seeking strength, stability, and power, but courting weakness and eagerly engaged in dispersing what power they have. Men and women of real power and influence are few because few are prepared to make the sacrifice necessary to the acquisition of power, and fewer still are ready to patiently build up character. To be swayed by your fluctuating thoughts and impulses is to be weak and powerless. To rightly control and direct those forces is to be strong and powerful. People of strong animal passions have much of the ferocity of the beast, but this is not power. The elements of power are there, but it is only when this ferocity is tamed and subdued by the higher intelligence that real power begins. And people can only grow in power by the awakening themselves to higher and ever higher states of intelligence and consciousness. The difference between people of weakness and people of power lies not in strength of the personal will. For stubborn people are usually weak and foolish, but in that focus of consciousness which represents their states of knowledge. The pleasure seekers, the lovers of excitement, the hunters after novelty, and the victims of impulse and hysterical emotion lack that knowledge of principles which gives balance, stability, and influence. People commence to develop power when, checking their impulses and selfish inclinations, they fall back upon the higher and calmer consciousness within them and begin to steady themselves upon a principle. The realization of unchanging principles and consciousness is at once the source and secret of the highest power. When, after much searching and suffering and sacrificing, the light of an eternal principle dawns upon the soul, a divine calm ensues, and joy unspeakable gladdens the heart. A calm ensues, and joy unspeakable gladdens the heart. Those who have realized such a principle cease to wander and remain poised and self-possessed. They cease to be passion's slaves and become master builders in the temple of destiny. People governed by self and not by a principle change their front when their selfish comforts are threatened. Deeply intent upon defending and guarding their own interests, they regard all means as lawful that will serve that end. Like their specific end. They are continually scheming as to how to protect themselves against enemies, being too self-centered to perceive that they are their own enemy. Such people's work crumbles away, for it is divorced from truth and power. All effort that is grounded upon self perishes. Only that work endures that is built upon an indestructible principle. Only that work endures that is built upon an indestructible principle. Those who stand upon a principle remain calm, dauntless, and self-possessed under all circumstances. When the hour of trial comes and decision must be made between personal comforts and truth, comforts are given up. This cannot be altered even when they are faced with the prospect of torture. Self-centered people regard the loss of their wealth, their comforts, or their lives as the greatest calamities which can befall them. People of principle look upon these incidents as comparatively insignificant and not to be compared with loss of character and loss of truth. To desert truth is to such people the only happening which can really be called a calamity. It is the hour of crisis which decides who are the minions of darkness and who the children of light. It is the epoch of threatening disaster, ruin, and persecution which divides the sheep from the goats and reveals to the reverential gaze of succeeding ages the men and women of power. It is easy for people, so long as they are left in the enjoyment of their possessions, to persuade themselves that they believe in and adhere to the principles of peace, harmony, and universal love. But when their enjoyments are threatened, or they imagine they are threatened, they begin to clamor loudly for war. Such people show that they believe in and stand upon not peace, harmony, and love, but strife, selfishness, and hatred. Those who do not desert their principles when threatened with the loss of every health or with every earthly thing, even to the loss of reputation and life, are the people of power, are those who do not desert their principles when threatened with the loss of every earthly thing. They are the men and women whose every word and work endures. They represent the leaders whom the afterworld honors, reveres, and worships. There is no way to the acquisition of spiritual power except by that inward illumination and enlightenment, which is the realization of spiritual principles. And those principles can be realized only by constant practice and application. Take the principle of divine love and quietly and diligently meditate upon it with the object of arriving at a thorough understanding of it. Bring its searching light to bear upon all your habits. The divine principle of love we're talking about. Bring its searching light to bear upon all your habits, your actions, your speech and intercourse with others, your every secret thought and desire. As you persevere in this course, the divine love will become more and more perfectly revealed to you, and your own shortcomings will stand out in more vivid contrast, spurring you on to renewed endeavor. Having once caught a glimpse of the incomparable majesty of that imperishable principle, you will never again rest in your weakness, your selfishness, your imperfection, but will pursue that love until you have relinquished every discordant element and have brought yourself into perfect harmony with it. In that state of inward harmony or spiritual power, take also other spiritual principles such as purity and compassion, and apply them in the same way, so exacting in truth. So doing is truth. You will be able to make no stay, no resting place, until the inmost garment of your soul is bereft of every stain, and your heart has become incapable of any hard, condemnatory, and pitiless impulse. Only insofar as you understand, realize, and rely upon these principles will you acquire spiritual power, and that power will be manifested in and through you in the form of increasing dispassion, patience, and equanimity. So what is he saying? A form of increasing dispassion. Like passion sometimes not a good thing, you know, because you're thinking about yourself. You're so passionate that you'll screw people over just to get to something, you know. Dispassion argues superior self-control. Sublime patience is the very hallmark of divine knowledge, and to retain an unbroken calm amid all the duties and distractions of life marks off the people of power. It is easy in the world to live after the world's opinion. It is easy in solitude to live after our own. But truly great people are those who in the midst of the crowd keep with perfect sweetness the independence of solitude. Some mystics hold that perfection in dispassion is the source of that power by which miracles, so-called, are performed. And truly those who have gained such perfect control of all their interior forces that no shock, however great, can for one moment unbalance them, must be capable of guiding and directing those forces in a consummate manner. To grow in self-control and patience and equanimity is to grow in strength and power. Self-control, patience. And you can only thus grow by focusing your consciousness upon a principle. As a child, after making many and vigorous attempts to walk unaided, at last succeeds after numerous falls in accomplishing this, so you must enter the way of power by first attempting to stand alone. Break away from the tyranny of custom, tradition, conventionality, and the opinions of others until you succeed in walking lonely and erect. Rely upon your own judgment. Be true to your own conscience. Follow the light that is within you. All outward lights are so many will-o'-the-whips. Okay, what did I say? Follow the light within you. All outward lights are so many will-o'-the-wisps. Meaning like here today, gone tomorrow, like just are not stable. There will be those who tell you that you are foolish, that your judgment is faulty, that your conscience is all awry, and that the light within you is darkness, but heed them not. If what they say is true, the sooner you, as a searcher for wisdom, find it out, the better, and you can make the discovery only by bringing your powers to the test. Therefore, pursue your course bravely. Your conscience is at least your own, and to follow it is the path to freedom. To follow the conscience of another is to be condemned to slavery. You will have many falls, will suffer many wounds, will endure many buffetings for a time. But press on in faith, believing that sure and certain victory lies ahead. Search for a rock, a principle, and having found it, cling to it. Get it under your feet and stand erect upon it until at last, immovably fixed upon it, you succeed in defying the fury of waves and storms of selfishness. For selfishness in any and every form is dissipation, weakness, death. Dissipation, I feel like it's kind of similar to disappearing, right? So dissipation is kind of like just meaningless. It's like, for selfishness in any and every form is dissipation, weakness, death. Unselfishness in its spiritual aspect is conservation, is preservation. To conserve something is to kind of like use it with patience, or using it wisely. So to an unselfish life, an aspect is conservation, power, and life. As you grow in spiritual life and become established upon principles, you will become as beautiful and as unchangeable as those principles. Will taste of the sweetness of their immortal essence, and will realize the eternal and indestructible nature of the God within. All right, that's the end of that chapter. Peace.